You're listening to the Ron and Don Show on the Ron and Don Radio Network. RonandDon.com.
All right, here we come. Look out now. It's the Ron and Don Show, only on the Ron and Don Radio Network, podcast number 21. He's Ron, I'm Don. And don't forget, all this brought to you by our real estate company. That's right, Ron and Don are licensed brokers. You can reach out to Ron. That's Ron Upshaw at Windermere.com or Don O'Neill at Windermere.com. When you think real estate, make sure you think of Ron and Don. Before we get going here, I want to know how much I get paid. You just had me come out and do some yard work on one of your listings, and I was out there for hours in the pouring rain. In the pouring rain,
there was some rain happening
in the pouring rain. And congratulations, you just sold this amazing home in Ballard. And usually you cut the lawn before you sell the house.
I did cut the lawn before I sold the house.
For some reason, you and I were out there cutting the lawn after you sold the house. So why was out there pulling weeds and cutting the lawn on a house that is supposedly down the road by Ron Upshaw and Windermere?
Now, honestly, for me, A, it was because the person that I was doing it with asked me, but B, because I want it to look good when the people move in tomorrow.
Oh, okay.
Or so when they get the house. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I was on the side of the seller, but I still want the people on the other side to be happy with it. So it didn't take that long. Thank you for doing that. You're good with an edger.
Yeah, don't think I'm not.
You did. There was a moment, though, I was over by the window, and it was, if it would have been bigger than the pebble that you hit, it would have taken that window out. Because you take your edger and you go into all sorts of different angles.
I took out bushes today. I took out trees, and I take out the lawn. And every once in a while, you're going to hit a rock or a boulder or a pebble, and you're going to take a window.
It's going to go right through the window. So that helped out. But seriously, I think closing strong is one of your life lessons. And I think, finishing strong is something that people will notice. So I'm hoping that the other agent that then represented the buyers will see that those buyers will say and go, hey, you know what? These guys went the extra mile at the end when they didn't have to, and that will mean something to them.
I know I went the extra mile.
Yeah, you did.
And do I
Pretty good edger.
Do I get paid anything for it?
What do you charge? Your son does it for $1.
Well, I tell you what, I didn't go to, and it kind of takes us to one of the first things I want to ask you about today. I didn't go to USC, and USC is back in the news because we know that Felicity Huffman now is into her second week. She's serving her 13-day sentence for writing a check, her and her husband, her famous husband, for $15,000 to get their two daughters into USC.
It was that small? I thought it was more than that.
It was only $15,000. We'll get to Lori McLaughlin here in a moment because she wrote a check, her and her husband, her designer husband, for $500,000. But she wrote a check for $15,000. And they say one of the reasons why she's not doing very much time is because she was very contrite. She admitted to it. Her husband was in on it, and he didn't admit to anything.
William H. Macy?
Yeah. He was there in the initial meeting where they were arranging this payoff. And for whatever reason, he didn't have to do any time, and she did. So she's doing her 13 days. I think she's on day number 8 or day number 9 right now. Part of the paparazzi has a picture of her in her prison garb. Evidently, her family came to see her over the weekend, and they say that she's doing okay. Her daughters now, they're no longer enrolled at USC. That's all that USC will say. They're no longer enrolled. To get into USC, out of all the people that apply to USC, only 13% of the people get in. I don't know what it was back in 1985, but I tried to get in schools like University of Notre Dame and USC. I had no business going there because I couldn't afford to walk in the door. I couldn't even afford the plane ticket to fly to those schools, but I got accepted to USC, and I also got accepted to the University of Notre Dame, and I ended up going to the University of New Mexico and the University of Washington. But nonetheless, to get into one of those schools, to do the work to get in one of those schools, and to do the work specifically to get into USC, it's a mammoth task. And so it seems like...
For someone like you.
Let me ask you this, though. Do you think the girls were in on it? Because they're acting like they don't know anything about it. Their mom has absolutely taken the bullet on this. Her husband is like, hey, I don't know what you're talking about.
I'm off making shameless.
Even though that he was on tape and they were involved in this discussion, I think those girls were absolutely positively in on this, and I think Felicity Huffman is guarding her daughters because they are superstars when it comes to Instagram. They are superstars. And what are they called? They're called presenters. Is that right?
Influencers.
They're called influencers. Influencers, presenters. these girls make a lot of money, and also their parents are pretty well loaded at this time. So financially, I think they're going to be okay. I think the whole family was in on what happened at the University of Southern California.
Yeah, and I don't think they probably saw it as a negative. You get what you pay for. And let's not pretend like USC and colleges at large are blameless in this. They have set up a system to do exactly what you just said in a beneficial way. Do you think that when if Bill Gates wanted his kids to go to UW and he just made the Bill and Melinda Gates computer lab, that they're not getting in? Do you think that a booster that supports the football team and is like, oh, you guys need a new weight room? How about the Don O'Neill Memorial Weight Room? That your son wouldn't make it in? So these things happen all the time where boosters get leaned on, where donors, if you're talking about USC, Notre Dame, Stanford, all those big names, MIT, Boston College, all those ones that have endowments, they lean on alums hard. And when it comes time to make a donation, they make some pretty suggestions on dollar amounts and what needs to happen. And that's all above boards. Like, that can happen. If you're an alum, if you were, a postdoctorate a graduate or a doctorate at a specific school, and you want to make a big donation now that you made it on Wall Street or you made it on Hollywood or you made it somewhere in life, your kid's getting in.
Yeah, the way it was explained to Felicity Huffman, she says, is when they were trying to get their kids into USC, they were told there's a front door and that there's a side door. And your daughter's test scores aren't good enough to walk in the front door of USC, but if you write a check, I can get you in the side door. So she's doing 13 days. We have other parents now that have stepped forward, and when you look at these parents and what they're involved with, some of the businesses they own, it is quite a pedigree. 4 more parents now have stepped forward, and it looks like they're going to do a little bit of time. What we don't know, Lori McLaughlin, who starred in Fuller House with Uncle Jesse, her and her husband wrote a check for over $500,000, and she's fighting it, right? And she says, we didn't do anything wrong. And sources say what she believes is just what you said, Ron. She believes that all she was doing was making a donation to the university for $500,000, and as a result of making that donation, maybe there was some favor afforded them as far as looking at their daughter's application, but they never thought that they were bribing anyone, and certainly they didn't feel like they were bribing coaches. But when your daughter has signed up to be on the rowing team, and your daughter has never rowed in her life, and she has a place on the USC rowing team, at some point, if you're Lori, you have to look in the mirror and say, you know what? I probably have stepped over a line here, because it's more than just writing a check. Your daughter has taken a place on a rowing crew, and she's never picked up an oar before, right?
Yeah, I mean that's a different wrinkle to this story, and I just think to pretend like this doesn't happen every day, that life isn't transactional. When you get a job, when you get into college, if it was all a meritocracy, then none of these big institutions would have multi-billion dollar endowments.
So my question for you, Alec Baldwin came out the other day and said none of these parents should do any time. This is ridiculous. It's just a waste of government money. On the other hand, if you come from a black and brown community and you're like, yeah, you know what? My people have been put away for 10, 20, 50 years for going out and maybe selling some marijuana. Now you have white guys that are farming marijuana, and they're not being put away. It's being celebrated, and it's being taxed. If you live in a black and brown community and you finally see that, hey, you know what? There's some Caucasian people around here that are finally going to do some jail time because they stepped over the line, you may feel like 13 days isn't enough. And it'll be really interesting to see what happens to Lori McLaughlin and her husband, because they may be looking at some serious time when you've written a check for $500,000. It's the Ron and Don Show, only on the Ron and Don Radio Network.
You should buy a shirt. It's the Ron and Don Nation t-shirt. $5 goes toward helping kids. It's cops helping kids. Find out more at ronanddon.com.